righty, welcome everybody. We are live. We'll get started here as you're coming in just a moment. We've got a pretty packed house today. We've got a couple hundred schools registered, so we're going to take a minute, let everybody hop in. I think an email just went out saying we're officially live, so I know everybody's getting that email as we speak. And then as you're coming in, we'd love to, why don't you just type in the chat, where are you calling in from? School, city, state, country? See a lot of familiar names. I was gonna say names and faces, but familiar names. You know,
Hmm.
I'm calling in from just outside. It's funny, Rob and I on the call here. We're similar area, right outside Philadelphia area. Tim, I was gonna say you're usually calling in from Florida, but you're officially in the new home in Maryland.
Yeah, I'm here at the Montessori Foundation Retreat Center in La Plata, Maryland, which is beautiful, but man, we just pulled in about an hour ago. And so we were unloading dogs and took a shower and feeling wrung out and put away wet, as they say.
And Debbie had just messaged. Thank you, Debbie. I could have sworn I went into those settings earlier in Zoom. I was like, I want to make sure chat is enabled, and apparently that didn't work. Well, Debbie, thank you. And that'll, I guess, lead me into logistics for today. Whether you want to chat or have questions, you can use the Q&A feature. So make sure you use Q&A if you have questions. We'll keep an eye on that, and whether during the session or certainly time after, we'll get to all those. So apologies for not having chat enabled, but we have the Q&A. So, well, we're about 3 minutes past. Tim, Rob,
All right.
want to get started. So, Tim, what I'll do is let me just go through logistics real quick, and then I'll just turn
Mhm.
it over to you.
Sure.
All right. Okay, logistics. So real quick, everybody, for many of you that have been with us for these Thursday webinars, just a few housekeeping items. One is these are recorded. So whether it's this session or any future sessions, if you can't attend live, you're going to get the recording. This will be emailed out with typically within 24 hours after the session is done. As I mentioned, use the Q&A feature to ask any questions. We'll get to them either during the session or afterwards. After the webinar, whenever you close the webinar, you get hit with that post-webinar survey. Literally takes 15 seconds to fill out. Always appreciate feedback, what you like, what you want to hear more about. Certainly, if there's anything we can help with, whether it's software or services, and you're like, hey, I want some more information, that's a great way to let us know and we can follow up with you. Um, Let me just see. I saw a chat message come in. Amy coming in from Canada. Welcome, welcome. Well, all right. Well, Tim, why don't I kick it over to you and you can get us started.
Sounds good. Hello, everyone. My name is Tim Selden. I'm the president of the Montessori Foundation, and we bring you this weekly webcast. I've been a school leader now for more than 50 years. Um, I've been working with software since the 1970s, from the early days of spreadsheets and long before there was anything like QuickBooks, the electric pencil. I've seen people trying to do the kinds of things we have to do and saying that it takes longer and longer to get the work done, or they're more and more frustrated. And I myself have worked with Montessori Compass since I met Rob and Anita Amos back in 1912. Feels like 1912. This is 2012. Worked with MRX, I think very highly of them. Worked with Transparent Classroom. I know a lot of schools that do all that. But one of the things that I know is how difficult it is to get teachers to do this and do it well, and to use it and not sit there on Saturday night or Sunday night resentful, putting in all the stuff they should have been doing during the course of the week. I also know about the schools that don't really do it and get sued. I end up going and testifying as an expert witness for trials against private schools, Montessori and otherwise. And so I've learned over the years, there's certain things you really want to do well. The other thing is I'm a great believer in marketing. And I've worked with a lot of different marketing companies. I have a lot of friends in the business. My family was in the business. I met Clint Lausch about 2 years ago now, and I was extraordinarily impressed with what he was doing. So the reason why we're here today is 12, 13 years ago, I began to nag Rob and Anita Amos about Montessori Compass and all the things I wanted it to do more, better, and different. And then I met Clint and I began to realize he wasn't doing what Compass was doing, but what he was doing was so cool and so affordable compared to what most of the people I was working with were providing. And I realized their software could talk to each other. And when, I've worked with companies like Fax and SchoolQ, all kinds of companies, Brightwheel, and I've never seen anything that really, in my mind, did it well. It was either too complicated, too hard for new people to learn, or too hard for people to use correctly, um, or it was too darn expensive. I mean, Blackbaud will whistle Dixie, but it's extraordinarily expensive and hard to learn. So it's not like there's only one solution in the world. I happen to believe the two people who are with me today have something really amazing to offer. And I heartily endorse them, recommend them to all of you. I work with them personally, and I really encourage you, stay till the end, listen to what these folks have to say, and I will chime in all the way through this. But I will say that this is good stuff. Clint, let me hand it over to you.
Well, I appreciate it, Tim. And yeah, just to piggyback on, what you had said is, we're going to, today's session, I think we're going to talk about what we're seeing is really working right now for Montessori schools, from the marketing and admissions, classroom management, parent communications. I mean, the world is just changing so fast. And let me just say the great news about running a software company is the amount of data that you get. So, when we're looking at this data and we're looking at all the research and we're trying to figure out, hey, how can schools really grow? How can they do all of these things? Certainly without breaking the bank either. And so we wanted to take, the first half of today's session, talk about what we're finding, what we're seeing is working, and how schools need to adapt, certainly. And then, yeah, I would love for everybody to stick with us towards the end. Rob and I will be talking about, how we've come together with the foundation and with the foundation support and guidance to have a solution that, not to sound cliche, but I think it's pretty revolutionary, in the marketplace, especially for Montessori schools. So I'm excited to get into that um, as we dive in. Rob, if you want to turn it over to you.
Yeah, hey, my name is Rob Amos. I'm one of the co-founders of Montessori Compass. We've been at this a long time. We launched back in 2012, and we were very fortunate, my wife and I, to meet Tim. And we got to know Tim and the team at the foundation, and it was just really, really helpful to really get expert guidance on Montessori, which really, as we all know in this call, is a very, unique niche within education. And we tried from the very beginning to try to bring out a solution that was going to try to make things easier in the classroom. Our own children went to a Montessori school in the Philadelphia area where I'm from, and so this has really kind of grown out of a Montessori environment with our own children, and we were seeing, just really amazing results from a parent's perspective, but there was still just a real mystery as to what's happening in the classroom. And we were kind of those parents that like to ask lots of questions and get to know the teachers and maybe hang out a little too long in the classroom sometimes. But, I just really fell in love with it. And the more that we learned, we realized that there's very unique challenges, communicating what's happening in the classroom and sharing that with parents. So, we aimed in our very early days to try to bridge that gap of communication and understanding between the classroom and the home. And just, it just kind of grew and grew from there. And we met Tim, and here we are all these years later. In recent years, we've worked with thousands of Montessori classrooms in every corner of the world, over 40 different countries. And we're just thrilled to, continue to work with Montessorians for all these years. And we're really excited to unveil our new, what we call Montessori Compass 2.0. And our new system, this is not just an update or, some new features or a fresh coat of paint. This is really a brand new system. We've been working on it for over 3 years, and we basically started over. We're basically building a house across the street from the one we've been living in all these years, and couldn't be more excited to open the doors and let everybody in. So we're in the process of bringing over current customers and welcoming new schools from around the world into our system now, and really excited to be working with Clint and Tim on this new initiative that we call the Montessori Growth Suite. And I think Clint will tell you a little bit more about that.
Yeah, let's dive into it. And I see all the messages coming in the chat, and it's good to have everybody here from everywhere: Canada, California, Florida. Looks like we got a couple of existing Compass users, so great to have you on as well, Lori, Brian, everybody on here as I'm seeing them come in. So thanks again for joining us. So let's dive in again. Who is this for? We're starting to allude to this, right? Which is, here are the things we're seeing and we're hearing, which is, hey, we need, if for anybody on here, it's like, hey, we need to fill more seats. We need to grow enrollment in a more predictable way. One of the things I always hear from the, especially on the marketing and admission side is, we're seeing families, how do we prevent them from, slipping through the cracks? How do we get better with all of our marketing and our communication, just have a seamless experience without juggling all these different tools and, especially with, geez, with how fast things are moving with AI now. And I would say in the digital world, but it seems like we're beyond just saying the digital world, the AI world. We know that how parents are choosing schools, it's changing, but it can almost feel like how do we catch up? How do we change? What do we need to do? What worked? I come from the marketing world, and I could tell you what used to work in advertising even 2, 3 years ago doesn't work anymore. And in fact, it can actually hurt you a little bit in terms of your results. So we'll talk a little bit about that today. Um, so I think what we're going to cover is, again, coming from the data background, I could share with you some things that we're seeing that if you do some of these things, how to actually double some of your inquiries, right? How you can stop losing families through the admissions process, building trust, right? Both building trust prior to enrollment, you'll see what I mean by there, but then using a platform, Rob had mentioned like Montessori Compass and having great parent communication. I mean, once they're enrolled, the best way to having a full school is having great retention, which comes down to parent communication and reinforcing the value proposition. So having a tool that parents and teachers are going to use is vital for that. How AI now, there's things that we can do now we couldn't do a couple of years ago, where now we're seeing costs go down by about 90%. So if anybody here is like, yeah, I want to advertise, but it's too expensive. We're spending a lot of budget without the results. You can get a lot more bang for your buck these days. And then ultimately, we're going to cover just how to make this whole thing seamless. And one of my big goals, not to tell more stories, but I'll just mercifully mention this, is I was a couple of years ago, I was presenting in a workshop in sunny San Diego, California, in front of about 30 schools. It was a multi-day workshop on digital marketing. And we got to the end of digital marketing, and I said, okay, here's how we do it. And all right, in order to do all of this stuff, here are the tools you need. And we literally rattled off like 5 or 6 different platforms that you needed to buy. And that was in addition to your normal admission software. And we jokingly said during that workshop, like, man, wouldn't it be great if there was an all-in-one solution? Everyone's like, yeah, it would be great. There's some massive platforms out there, but nobody was doing it. And that always stuck with me. And yeah, so again, that leads into happy to be here today, finally delivering on that as well. So we're going to talk about a Montessori line framework. Especially we're working on with the foundation, um, and how we can align everything together. Again, as we mentioned towards the end, we'll talk about the growth suite specifically, the software. Look, as we're launching this, we want to just always deliver as much value as possible. So, as they say, we'll make you an offer you can't refuse. I should have had a picture of The Godfather on here. We have there's some really great things that we can do in addition to software. I mean, the software is great, but we always know you need support and guidance. So marketing reports, setup guidance. We'll talk about that towards the end, and certainly some special pricing. So I think what you'll find is you'll be blown away by the pricing. And that was one of our goals. Is we know things can get expensive very quickly as you're using different software platforms or having to hire agencies. So we hope you'll realize that what we put together kind of blows all that out of the water, if you will. All right. So as I mentioned, right, who is this for? So essentially, as I was going through this, like if you were nodding your head yes, right, I would say, it's not necessarily your fault because I think we've all kind of felt this way. Now, Rob, I did see, I'll make sure I'm not missing. Did Tim drop off? I think I might have seen Tim drop off.
Yeah, I know he's just arrived and
Yeah.
he's having some internet problems, so hopefully he'll be back.
Yeah. Yeah. So everybody's aware. Tim literally just got out of driving from Florida to his new home in Maryland as we're planning this webinar, and literally just unpacked and is in the house with the new internet. So we're hoping he can join us and come back. So we'll keep an eye out for him. I'll shoot him a message here, but we'll keep the party going. All right, let me pull up the Q&A so I don't miss anything. Okay, cool. Yeah, so as I mentioned, it's not that any of those are the real problem. It's just understanding the shifts, right? What's happening now? What kind of shifts do we need to make to understand how do we influence decision making among our families? So, and as you probably saw in the invitation to get here, we're talking about this concept of the Montessori family journey, right? There are families, as they're choosing a school, they're going through a journey, really a decision making journey. And there's a lot of different channels, if you will, a lot of different things influencing that decision making process. Hey, Tim. So I got back on. um, and again, Tim, Rob, stop me at any one of these slides, but I'll just keep rolling through here. That again, what we're seeing, again, what the data is showing, and understanding how families are, not just using the internet, using social media these days, how we're all bombarded by a million different ads, right? It's, when you understand the family journey, what we're seeing is that it will absolutely help you enroll more families, build deeper trust, which is really the name of the game, both prior to and after enrollment, and then also reduce workload, right? Everybody on here is probably wearing multiple hats, right? You're the head of school and the teacher and the admissions director, right? You're the marketer and the photographer and the teacher as well, right? So we're all wearing a lot of hats. So how can we reduce workload as well so that you can spend more time doing what you want to do, and that's serving your families and serving your students. So I'm gonna pose a question for everybody. So get ready to go in the Q&A and answer this question. And if you've seen me present this before, because this is some data that's come out in the past year, which is really interesting. But the old accepted fact, if anybody's been in the marketing world or look at marketing statistics, the old accepted fact was that somebody needs to see your quote unquote, your offer, your school, your brand 5 to 7 times before engaging with you. Does anybody know what that is right now? So this has been accepted since like I think the 70s or 60s, whenever they did this research. Do you think it's higher or lower? Does anybody want to venture a guess of what they think it is now? So we've got, see a couple lowers coming in. Lower. Anybody want to venture a guess at a number? Give you 5 more seconds. All right. So it used to be 5 to 7 times. And we got a 10 to 15. So we got a couple lower, a couple higher. Yeah, it's higher. Here's essentially the new rules. This is according to HubSpot and a company called C3 Metrics. They actually came up with some different numbers, so that's why I'm combining them. They need to see your offer 11 to 33 times before engaging with your school. So HubSpot said closer to 11. C3 actually said 33. And if you think about in reality why that is, I mean, just think about how inundated we are with social media and ads. There was one statistic I didn't put in here, but I remember hearing it. It was like we used to, like before social media, see whatever it was, like 5,000 ads in a week. We now see 5,000 ads a day. So we have to kind of cut through the noise now, and understanding these new rules, how they play into decision making. So let's talk about it. I'll go through each one of these. Tim, Rob, certainly stop me if we want to talk through any of these a little bit more. But I think the first one is awareness. Probably the one thing I hear that schools always hate to I know schools hate to hear this from their parents, and that's you're the best kept secret. Nobody wants to be the best kept secret. We want to be known by everybody, right? So how do we create that awareness? So first, we have to make families aware that you exist, right? And that can be done through a variety of ways, right? Um, it could be through just word of mouth, which is obviously the most common way families learn and enroll in a school, but word of mouth. It could be the billboard, it could be the yard signs, it could be the newspaper, it could be social media, it could be ads that you're running, right? So we at least have to catch their attention to know that you exist for their child and for their family. Then findability. So when you go to Google, and by the way, this is even changing now with AI, as we all probably have seen, you go to Google now, it used to be you saw ads and then you saw search results. Now you see AI results at the top, right? So even this is changing. So how do we stand out in the search results? So when somebody types in best private schools near me, Montessori schools in Austin, top preschools, how do we get found? Right? So that's really the next step. And then here's some interesting data that came from niche.com is that they said 27% of searches for a schools were first discovered through Google search. 27% of families started on Google search. 23 through word of mouth. 22 through a platform like Niche, right? So that's a big number. I don't think we realize that close to 30% were just searching on Google looking for preschools near me or Montessori schools near me. Then we get into reputation. And reputation means more than ads, or sorry, more than reviews. It's they're trying to decide, should I consider a Montessori school or a traditional school? Is this the right school for me? Will my child be prepared? I'm going to go look at those reviews. I'm going to talk with friends and family. I'm going to read the content on your website, check out social media. I'm going to do all these things that we all do when researching anything. And Google actually gives us a name. And if you see this at the top, it's ZMOT. That's the zero moment of truth. This is the moment that your families are deciding whether they just want to take the next step with you, which is what we call the conversion point, which is I'm ready to come on campus. I'm ready to place a call with your admissions team. I'm ready to tour. I want to come to the event. So, but I want you to think about up until this stage, this is all done without ever talking with somebody in your team, right? This is all online research at home, talking with friends, reading stuff without you even being aware. They're maybe even searching for a school. It's not until this conversion point where you finally say, okay, yeah, I'm interested in a school. And what's really interesting is HubSpot has some really interesting data that says 70% of a family's mind is made up by the time they reach the conversion point. 7 out of 10 families' mind is pretty much made up by the time they get to the conversion point because of everything that they learn. They're just going to come on campus and do the tour to reinforce what they've already learned. Okay.
Clint,
So then
maybe
go
I
ahead,
want
Tim.
to take a moment and clarify for everyone what conversion point means.
Yeah, I would say it's at the point you're making a commitment to take an action. Come on campus, fill out an inquiry form, come
By
to an
the
event.
time they fill out a form or call to come and see you the first time, they pretty much know whether they're interested or not.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think that's an important concept, that your reputation is built and it takes time. I mean, usually I use the metaphor that most schools to 5,000 when they should be spending $50,000 to $100,000 a year. And I know that many of you are sitting there scratching your head thinking, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about, but I do. And without aggressive marketing, you're either happen to be in a place where the soil is rich and there's enough rain this year and everything is great. You're living on reputation, word of mouth, but it doesn't take much. One bad day, one bad news story, one disgruntled family, and you can lose 10% of your population in a heartbeat. Marketing is not just making sure that, the phone is ringing. You want 20 times the number of people trying to get into your school than you have openings. And by the way, where Rob fits into this is people are always complaining that once their kids are in Montessori, it's lovely. They like the teachers, but it's a freaking black hole. They don't know what's going on all the time. They're looking for solid information and information they can understand. So what I think what Clint is saying with all this is he's got a solution that is smart. It uses AI. It uses best practice. Clint is a full-scale agency guy, and he's got a solution that's affordable because everyone else that I'm working with, and I know a lot of agency people who work with private schools in Montessori, they cost typically 2 to 5 times what Clint is charging with Growth Suite. Getting them in the door is really critical. Clint and I do a webcast every Tuesday at 1 o'clock Eastern time on finding the perfect match. Just what does it take to get families through this journey? But the other side of this, the reason why I thought about it, I said, I got to get these two friends together because Rob has a solution that isn't the only solution. There are a number of solutions that are out there. Again, I know Transparent Classroom, I know MRX. That may be what you use. I happen to believe in Montessori Compass, and it's not the only one out there. But I will say that it's the one I choose. And I will say that from my experience, going back now 20 some years in software for keeping records in private schools, I have worked with the biggest Blackbaud and Fax. I've worked with Montessori Compass and MRX and Transparent Classroom through schools that I mentor very, very closely, and I have accounts, and I really see what their teachers are doing. What I appreciate about you, Rob, and what I appreciate about your wife and the team at Montessori Compass is you not only have been there almost the longest. I think Dave Rapkin may have been there before you were. But when I first got into this and I approached Dave and I said, this is what software should do. And what he said to me many years ago is, I can't do this. It's too expensive to rewrite my software. Now, again, every time someone rewrites software, they improve it. And the same thing was true of you, Rob. Whoever writes it last usually ends up with a significant upgrade. And I just really acknowledge that. But what I appreciate about what I think all of you are beginning to do now is you're beginning to structure software so it can be upgraded faster and less expensively, so it can be much more responsive to different languages and different alphabets and different ideas. Certainly, Rob, you and our team are working together with operating users around the world of Montessori Compass to think about the last bells and whistles that you want to put in there before it goes live with kids in August, right?
So yeah, this is when you're talking about software, we've been at this for a long time. It's like a living, breathing entity. It's something that you're always working on, you're always trying to improve. And we're in a kind of it's a unique place. I'm pushing 50 years old at this point, and I've been at this a while, and but I feel like it's almost being a kid again, like with a startup, because we have the benefit of having the experience and the wisdom that we've gained from over these years and working with the foundation and all these schools, but we have a shiny new car too. This is really pretty cool. We have a really, really new system with all the latest stuff. And to Tim's point, in the software world, whoever has the latest thing is definitely going to have an advantage because we're using technologies that just didn't exist even a few years ago. So, we're really, really excited about where we're going and kind of having that unique perspective of having experience, real world experience working with Montessorians all over the world and working with Tim and the foundations team and to be able to kind of bring this brand new entity into the world right now, it's real exciting. We're really looking forward to it. And then building this partnership with Clint and bringing out the really what is going to, I think if you really do your research and really look around at what's out there, this is the Montessori Growth Suite, the combination of the tools that Clint is bringing to the table and the tools that Montessori Compass brings to the table, along with the foundation's many contributions. It really is a true whole school solution that is very, very unique in Montessori. And Clint, one thing I would like you to touch on at some point is that you have so many features as part of the growth suite. If you were to try to stitch those together using the myriad of other tools that are out there, I mean, you would easily be paying two, three times or more in terms of investment for your school. So we're really excited to bring this offering to everybody.
And that's conservative, Rob. I mean, it all depends on what you're using, folks. Um, but the bottom line is we know what's out there. We know who's doing what pretty much. And it is so hard to create a comprehensive all-in-one solution for school management. There are going to be different softwares that may meet different people's needs. You know, the bottom line, what I appreciate about Clint, as you said, Rob, is Clint comes to the table with one of the most powerful software solutions, not designed to keep records and plan lessons and report to parents, but to do everything else that's involved with a school. When you combine that with the power of Montessori Compass, which has by far the most sophisticated and robust curriculum mapping software and app for a teacher who's very, very busy to record data and get it into the computer quickly and to report it out to parents in a way they're likely to understand it. Plus, one of the things that we've done, Rob, is made the Family Alliance resources largely available to the Growth Suite people. So you're going to be getting a lot of curated stuff, pretty much the way schools were telling you all along. They didn't want Tomorrow's Child magazine necessarily or to be part of our national organization. They wanted the school to be able to choose what to send out. But we're creating so much curated content for them, so many services that we're not even really touching on at the moment, that I can only say to you as a school leader, this is what most of us always wanted. Clint, back to you.
Clint, move forward with
Yeah,
the slide.
I was muted there as I was saying, like, yes, and then we're going to get into even some of the comparisons and some of the features that again help solve what we're looking at here, which is again this full family journey and talking about the part I think what's so important. The two I would say even most important pieces as we're looking at this. Actually, let me go back real quick. Is the conversion point, right? Because this is, and again, this is where having this data is so important. It's like we look at these pages, right? You might look at these like, okay, what are these? These are pages that represent conversion points, registration for events, admission center style pages, which are designed to get somebody to take an action. Let me give you some quick data that from doing this long enough, looking at probably hundreds of different Google Analytics accounts, what I can tell you is that most schools' standard admission pages on their website convert at less than 1.5%. So typically it's 1 to 1.5%. So if you wanted to run an ad, let's say, to get people to register for an open house, or if you were saying right now, man, I really want more tours. How do we get more tours? And usually the first reaction is, well, let's go and advertise. Let's go create that awareness. Let's send people to our admissions page. And what I'm here to say is like that's not that it doesn't work, but you're not going to get the most bang for your buck. So focusing on your conversion point is one of those things that we're seeing. Having pages like this can actually, I've seen it go anywhere from 2.5 to 7% conversion rate. So that's anywhere from 2 to 4 times the conversion rate of a standard page. So I wanted to point that out because as we think about, okay, we're going to start talking about how do we juggle all of this? How do we influence decision making? The conversion point is one of the most important factors to consider if you're, especially when you're saying to yourself, how do we get more inquiries, more applications, more tours, more event registrations? And then what's also extremely important, because it's really how you keep your schools full, which is the retention, and also how we all know word of mouth is the number one driver for um, new enrollment. So having an amazing experience where your teachers are engaged, your parents are engaged, they're doing their observations, they have an amazing curriculum, parents can see what's going on. Having that experience so that they're talking about it is going to contribute to that next person's decision. And so as we lay it all out here, right, we have the awareness, findability, reputation, conversion. There's a lot here, right? And as we talked about before with, wearing multiple hats, so some of you are probably looking at it saying, yep, I do that, I do that, I do that. Somebody else does that, right? So there's a lot to do here. And but the challenge is that, okay, we understand this, but then if execution is a nightmare, then it becomes extremely frustrating. And so, we were going through and really looking at, okay, what does it take to actually tend to all of these channels, influence these decisions, right? So many of you, if you want to run ads, you either have to do it yourself, which is time consuming, or maybe some of you may feel like I just don't have the expertise to do it. Then you have to turn to an ad agency. They will, at a minimum, charge you $750 to $1,000 a month to run your ads. If you want to get found in Google, they will charge you $750 minimum. And again, I come from the agency world, so I'm very familiar with what they charge. And obviously, I've seen a lot of proposals out there. These are probably conservative numbers. I've seen so many schools where they're like, yeah, we're going to advertise. We spend $500 in ads and $800 a month in agency fees. The fees are more than the dollars going to grow your school. Then when it comes to content, like improving your reputation, writing those blog posts, those emails, those newsletters, if you don't hire somebody, if to spend time writing yourself, everybody I've talked to always says, yeah, we want to do that blog. We want to write about, why Montessori, but man, it's just another thing we have to do. So, and then to get to the conversion point, that's where we start talking about all the admission tools out there and your tuition tools and your enrollment management tools. And then you have to move them over into your classroom management tools. And all of these are tools and things that you have to buy, right? So it starts to really add up and become frustrating. It's really why um, it can be a challenge to influence the decision making at all those different stages. And also, I'll point out, because coming from the marketing and admissions world, I also know that it's been virtually impossible to tie together your marketing efforts to enrollment. Like, wouldn't it be amazing that at the end of the year, you're meeting with your board, you're meeting with your head of school, and you can go back and say, yeah, we did run $5,000 of Facebook ads, and we got 3 newly enrolled families, right? Or when we ran that local newspaper ad, that brought us 5 new applications. And that fall event that we ran, that community event, how did that help? Up until now, there's been like a fence or a wall between marketing and admissions. The moment you move your families that came in from your marketing into some sort of admissions platform, you lose all of that data. So, and then plus, this is probably the most annoying thing I hear from schools, or schools that are annoyed with, I should say, is that they have to then manually move information between multiple platforms, marketing platforms, email platforms, admissions platforms, SIS platforms, right? They're moving stuff all over the place. So that's, again, as you can imagine, this is what we solve with the growth suite. So in it, and this is where we'll dive a little bit more into this. So I wanted to, again, share with you what we're seeing is what schools need to do to really grow, understanding that journey, but then making it easy to execute, right? So with the growth suite, you can now do your advertising, your marketing, your admissions, your tuition, your classroom management, your parent communication. That was our goal. And as I continue to go through this, Rob, Tim, if there's anything to add into here, but yeah, we wanted something that was truly all in one, not just a piece of the pie.
And we want it to be affordable. I mean,
Yeah.
I know that when I last was approached by Niche, they were trying to sell us on a $20,000 a year campaign, which included no social media paid. It was just Niche,
Yeah.
and what Niche would do. I know a school I've worked with for 30 years in the Detroit area that is spending $1,200 a month just for agency fees. Companies, we all know the names of those companies, Nido Marketing and Montessori Agency and School Success. There are a lot of really good people. They're all good, but they're expensive and they don't give the kind of support that I've noticed that you're able to do. And then the other side, as you said, is they make the phone ring, but making the phone ring is only the first step in the journey of enrollment. And once you get them, once they sign up on the dotted line and they're part of your community, that's when you really got to work hard because, as we like to say, a Montessori child can never be replaced. I mean, truth is, in any independent school, you don't want to lose families. You want to keep the same families year after year. That's what builds strong schools. But with Montessori, it's particularly important to have stability and buy-in. And so many families, they like us, but they don't like us that much. And they drift away silently in the night. And that's what we're trying to do, is to help you find the right families and then communicate with them in a way that they can understand often enough. And let's face it, my son Mark Sheldon says, we have a little school called the Renaissance School, Cary, North Carolina. And what Mark said to me when I was talking about this is, my teachers don't want to use any software. They don't use computers during the day. They don't have time for that. What they want to do is walk around with a clipboard. And I get it, because that's what I did for many, many years. It's very convenient. But I can tell you, when someone eventually sues you and you have to produce records, you will wish that you had the right records. I have rarely been sued, but I can tell you that I get called as an expert witness in suits against independent schools, especially Montessori schools. And it's not a pretty picture when the school does not have good, solid, reliable information, and the other side has a sharp attorney who's trying to nail you to the wall. That's what you end up with, is your insurance company caving and giving them a settlement that costs you dearly in the future and your future premiums. So again, what we're trying to do is avoid that kind of disgruntled parent or a parent who just says, I like it, but I just don't really know that what makes it that different from the other schools around, public or private.
And so, along those lines, in terms of having, the different tools, and I'm sure everybody's looking at this and saying, yeah, this is kind of what we're dealing with, right? We're using something to book our tours. We're using something else to manage our inquiry forms. We're using something else to do our email marketing. We're using an agency, then we're using something else for our classroom management, right? So again, that's I would say the old way, but I know almost everybody had to operate this way. But that's why we wanted to, again, this is what we put together. So now it's all seamlessly done in one platform. So, we talked about the comparison. I probably should have jumped to this when you were talking about, is that when you look at, I'll just highlight the things that, based upon that family journey, what we included in here. So campaigns and ads done for you, right? So working with the foundation, looking at, okay, what are the types of campaigns that Montessori schools need to be running to get them on campus? We pre-built those so that they're really plug and play now. You push a button, they're done. We're not going to have time today to do demos and things like that. That's why, if you're interested in a demo, we could schedule that after. But ads done for you, AI powered, they'll manage them for you. You just make sure it's designed the right way and you're off and running. A way to manage your families, scheduling and follow up, email, text messaging, WhatsApp. This is especially where the foundation's been so great to collaborate with. We all want the blog stuff, right? We all know we should have a blog, right? Content that helps answer the questions that parents have. Establish yourself as a thought leader, but it's so difficult to manage it all. We now, in collaboration with the foundation and the content that they're providing, inside your platform now, every single month you get 4 new Montessori focused blog posts and accompanying email, so that you can send out an email saying, hey, here, read this blog post. Here's what it's about. So a year's worth of blog posts. We have what's called a lead magnet. That's like a downloadable guide. Why choose a Montessori school? Download here. It's a great way to build your contact database of interested families. As you can see here, these are what it would cost you to do this, either to pay for a tool or pay for a service. Social media planner, building those admission pages, tuition management, classroom management, apps, analytics dashboard, contracts and signing, all of that again is in here, right? So just to reinforce it, if you were to add this up, we went through and added up, looked at all the tools, what they're charging, and that if you wanted all of this, it does come out to about close to $17,000 between what you would have to pay an agency to run your ads, and then when you start paying, $2, $4, $6 a student for tools that only do a couple of these things, it really does add up. So as Tim has mentioned, when we start talking about price, we'll get into it. So with our bundle, is at some point we'll probably, it's at $6. Even if you go to our website, it's at $4 per student per month. That's billed, at the annual price. But for everybody on the webinar watching this, we want to have a special launch price. So let's go to the next screen. Hold on. So we're doing something right now through July 15th where it's $3 per student per month. That's annual. There's monthly options as well, but essentially it's a 25% savings. And then when you get set up, we also include a marketing audit. I get asked all the time, hey, could you look at our website? Could you audit our ads? That's something that we'll do a 1 hour review. We'll have a full report of all of your marketing, competitor analysis, how you're ranking in Google, looking at your ads, looking at social media, something we typically charge $500 for. And that's going to be included for anybody who signs up with the Growth Suite during this time. Also, we know that, look, when you're launching an ad, and yes, it's plug and play, there's a lot of variables that go into ad campaigns. We always want to make sure that if you decide to run an ad campaign now or even in the future, we will sit with you and build your ad campaign with you. That is something when you go, if you go to like my website for the software, we charge for that. It's typically a $950 setup fee. That is going to be included as well for free with this. So if you're looking at this, and I see there's questions coming in, we'll get to all those questions. If you're interested in trying it out, again, there's a 30-day trial. There's a couple ways to do this. One, when you exit this webinar, there is the survey. You can always just let us know. We'll get you the links. And we'll put this in the chat that if you go to montessoricompass.com/growth suite, you'll see a 30-day trial there. And then if you wanted a demo first, if you go to the webinar page, you can schedule a demo of if you want to look at the classroom management side or if you want to look at the marketing and admission side. And again, the platforms are connected and speak to each other. So when I get that question a lot. Well, how are these connected? Well, when somebody gets enrolled, you just put a little tag on them, automatically gets pushed over into your classroom management side of the house. And so you don't have to do imports, exports, manual stuff, and it creates a really nice integration. So I think that's the last slide I had here. I see there's questions coming in, but Rob, Tim, turn it over to you guys to add on anything that I had said.
Yeah, just I really like, the visualizing here of the idea of the Montessori family journey. I think that really does a nice job at kind of illustrating what we're trying to do here with the Montessori Growth Suite is, on Clint's side, he's going to take you from by the time the child, might only be a couple months old and the parents are starting to look around and thinking about the future, about where they might want to send their young child. And it comes with the advertising and the marketing and eventually the admissions and everything else that goes along with it. And then eventually, once the child's about to start, that's when you hand off the Montessori Compass. And then we're going to take the child from there on that part of the journey. Now they're in your school. Now the child's, coming to your school and is engaged in the classroom. And, our job is to make it easy for the teachers and guides in the classroom to really, capture those meaningful moments in the classroom, the interaction between the teacher and the child, and to communicate with that with parents, to go ahead and document that from a record keeping standpoint, to Tim's point about kind of having that sort of protection in place for the school, that you have documented records that you can call upon if necessary, but then also the communication aspect. And our whole vision for this new version of Montessori Compass was to really get, just put the tools in your hands and kind of get out of your way as quickly as possible. So all in the same workflow, you can record a child, working with a lesson or material in your classroom. You could record, of course, an assessment, an observation, a photo, and even a video, all in the same flow there. So you're not having to go back and worry about this later. So all within just a couple of seconds, really, you can capture all that information, and then it can be saved in the child's portfolio that you can call upon for years to come, for as long as that child's in your care. And then communicate that with parents, run conference reports, and all that sort of stuff. So, it's all, right there in the palm of your hand, whether you're doing this on a phone or an iPad or whatever you have in the classroom. And a little sort of pro tip that I like to tell people is that if you're one of those, those classrooms like Tim's son Mark's school, that they don't want to have devices in the classroom, and that's absolutely fine. There is no one way to do Montessori, right? So there's no one size fits all approach to the software either. It adapts to meet your needs and where you are today. So one thing that sometimes people take photos in the classroom and kind of use those as bookmarks and then come back to them. You have the child working with the material, and you can go ahead and then upload that into our app and do your record keeping sort of backwards. So there's any number of ways you could do it. You could do it on a clipboard and a piece of paper, whatever works for your approach in the classroom. Our software is designed to be as adaptable as we can be to make it work for you.
Awesome. And I
Yeah, I think
just,
that,
oh, go ahead, Tim.
no, I was going to say that I think that, again, what we're really offering here is not just software, is a level of coaching and mentorship and onboarding and support that, from my experience, has really been needed for a long time. And why the foundation is interested is we were founded to support and nurture strong Montessori schools. Now, we don't care if you're a Montessori school or a parochial school, or as one school wrote in the Q&A, we're Montessori inspired. Well, to me, that's a Montessori school. So there are lots of different things. We believe very strongly that there's no one size fits all, but there are best practices. For example, you may have seen me turn off my video. We're at the new Montessori Foundation Retreat Center, which is 83 acres near Washington, D.C., out in the country. We have a beautiful forested area. Well, my first dog, Gulliver, escaped, and I had to go chase him and get him in the house because he was going to head down the hills and into the woods. That's what parents do to us, folks. They just sort of disappear in the night. And you got to work hard and stay vigilant. And we have staff, good, well-meaning people. I was just talking to a head of school just yesterday, was saying, I have these great people, but they don't have time to follow up. And I had to say, every lead you get needs a text or a phone call within 3 minutes. Answer the phone quickly. There are certain things that work. And it's not that it's one thing for all schools, but you really got to think sharp. One of the things I like about Clint's solution is AI. We throw in about 40 different messages that we think might work. You can always create one of your own. One of the things I like about the Grow Suite is its ability for us as school leaders to customize it. So if you've got something that an agency created, or you're good at photography or video, you want to do something different, you got a different message, very easy using the Grow Suite software to do this. In the same way, Rob, instead of, the AMI curriculum, AMS curriculum, the whatever curriculum, I mean, you can have any curriculum. You can map it to any national, state, Common Core, whatever you want to do. It's just what's there is by far the most comprehensive and robust. And one of my concerns with Montessori schools, we tend to think our albums are an entire curriculum. And I'm sorry, especially in English, in the English speaking world, it is not the entire curriculum at all. And if you don't cover everything, what happens is kids go off to the next school, whether it's parochial or private, independent, or public, and people start saying nasty, dirty things about how unprepared our kids were. Now, if you're hearing from the next school that the kids that you're sending them are prepared better than anyone else, that's great. But from my experience, it's a mixed bag and it changes from year to year. I think what we're trying to do is help you to work smart, to work more cost efficiently, because I want you putting your money into marketing dollars, not into software fees. I mean, you need software. And there are a lot of people out there. I know of 10 different companies right now working to develop some kind of Montessori school management software. I have had nightmare experiences with some of them. I've seen others that I think are pretty good. The bottom line is what the foundation tries to do is to be kind of a good housekeeping seal. We look at the software that's out there and we look for what we believe is the best. And we put our stamp on it because these are things that we know from long experience, they work.
And no, that's great stuff, Tim. And there's a lot of great comments and questions that have come in, and I'm going to get. Let's hop in. And I think one of the questions that Tim you had hit on, which is the flexibility. You know, Catherine, you said, is your software flexible enough for you to add additional things you're evaluating? I'd love to know more specifically, maybe what you're referring to about evaluating. I can just speak to. I had a call with a school yesterday, right? And they're like, we were looking at this one program. They kind of force us to do tuition this way, and we have to use these forms that way, and this is how we have to manage our admissions. And in short, what I could say is, yes, there's, as Tim had mentioned, a best practices and what we might recommend or how it comes out of the box, but everything is customized to how you want to manage your admissions, manage your school. So even at the simplest level, the one school was like, no, we didn't want to charge a late fee to our parents, but they had to because of how the platform worked. Well, you don't have to do it this way. You want to or you don't want to, right? You want to have a different admissions process than the next school, you can do that. You want to collect different documents. Obviously, everybody's different there. That everything can be customized. And during the onboarding process, we work with you to understand what's most important to you, and we can set it up so that it is truly customized to your school.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's something I really appreciate is how robust it is and how easy it is for the most part to make it do what you want. You may need to call Rob or Clint. What I appreciate about them, frankly, again, as someone who has worked with them for a long time, is they answer the phone quickly. And they're good at customer service is excellent. Clint has arranged a support team that's 24/7. So it's not just Clint by himself. And I know that Rob and I really appreciate what we've seen him do. Um, and we're all working to, again, I'm not in the software business. I'm in the school consulting business. That's what the Montessori Foundation does. But we're here to help you keep your enrollment full, have happy parents, keep your staff on board, because they can go out and get a job at Starbucks very easily. We want to help you succeed. By the way, I noticed someone put in a Q&A, why was the school sued? The answer is simple: failure to educate. Failure to educate is very common. Kid, is with you for 2 or 3 years, go to the next school, they give them a test. The kid doesn't show up as having the skills needed to be a kindergartner or first grader. They're held back for a year. For some parents, that's just a nasty review on Facebook or Yelp. For other parents, it's a get out the lawyer and let's sue for failure to educate, because they're paying us money to educate. So it's a real thing. All of us know the things that can happen, and it happens all too often.
a couple other quick questions I want to answer very briefly. Will this be recorded? Yes, this is recorded. You're going to get this following session. So just want to make sure everybody's aware of that. There was an interesting one here about if Montessori schools in our area have access to our client list too, if they use the same platform. Absolutely not. do not share. I think I have a feeling of what you're referring to. I have an idea of who that might be, but that is not the case. Nobody gets access to your list. So I hope that is a definitive answer to that question. How complicated and time consuming will it be to switch billing? So yeah, I know there's a couple things there, which is getting your billing set up, and then also if you want to bring over your historical records and for your archives and all of your existing transactions. You know, if you had a transaction happen in the past month and you want to move that over, as long as you can get a CSV of that, we can import it very simply. But our team will work with you to get that done. But ultimately, we have multiple onboarding sessions to help you get that set up. So, you know, typically, and I'll speak for myself on the side of the marketing admissions side of the house, you know, and admissions all include tuition in there. To get that set up inside the platform, typically we're done within in a couple weeks. You can get onboarded right away. There's an implementation, and then depending upon what you might need, we'll schedule some additional sessions to make sure it gets set up. So a lot of this is done with you. Whereas, you know, I think the other thing to keep in the back of your mind is, you know, the software is great and everything we're talking about is software related, but you're never left alone with the software. I think it's always important to keep in the back of your mind, whether it's, yes, the 24/7 chat, but we have weekly coaching sessions, weekly office hours. We're actually just launching a brand new community here shortly where it's just a big open discussion forum where you can connect with other schools, other admission directors, heads of school, teachers. So there's actually going to be a forum in there to get support. So you're going to have a really great community of both, you know, the experts in the industry, and all of your fellow leaders from across the globe. So that's the long answer. Short answer is, you know, we can match urgency and get you set up pretty quickly. All right. That was the question about the other schools. Looks like a couple of folks in here, Rob, are currently using Compass and they're excited. So it's great to have you on and excited for you to see what's next.
We're excited to show you.
There was a question here about the financial portion of the growth suite and what's it composed of. I mean, in general, it's going to, when you say the financial portion, we'll talk a lot about tuition, but the best way to think about is billing and tuition. It can be used for collecting everything from your application deposits, setting up your tuition plans. Obviously, that's simple. We have a Montessori school right now that's using it. Every Wednesday, they were collecting their pizza money and distributing who paid for pizza and how many slices to their teachers. They were just running a fundraiser for selling a brick. You can use it for fundraising. But yeah, the financial portion, you can use it for anything. It's going to do everything you expect it to do. Automated payments, invoicing, connects with QuickBooks. You have your parent portal to manage their billing. So yeah, it's going to do everything you would expect a tuition platform to do, and even beyond. You know, you can use it for your fundraising as well. And events. You want to set up a school store. That's one of the things we have in the works here. We're going to provide everybody probably closer towards the end of the year. Is you can have your own school store set up in here if you want. Selling, obviously right now summer camps. You want to charge for summer camps, event registrations, track registrations, have them pay for it. All of that.
Yeah, I mean, what you've got is a compliant, data secure way of setting up an account, having the records of what everyone has been billed and paid, their contract, God forbid you ever need to go to collections or court. I mean, all of that is done professionally.
And Rob and Tim, I want to toss this over to you. There was a question about does this cover all levels of Montessori? Is it aligning with our state standards, something we have to do, or do you have that mapped out already?
So the scope and sequence that we provide is a collaboration with the foundation and Montessori Compass from many years ago when we first started. And it ranges from infant through age 12, and that is in an authentic Montessori scope and sequence. We did a mapping a number of years ago to the US Common Core state standards, so that is available. You are able to map the Montessori curriculum to anything that you want, any sort of state, national, standards that you would be interested in. We are planning on getting some additional content in there for some of the early childhood state standards in the US. We're getting requests for other parts of the world as well. So those things will be forthcoming, but you can map it yourself to anything you want. That's completely customizable. Um, the way that the standards will work is we recognize that a Montessori educator really doesn't want to spend a whole lot of time thinking about standards when they're in the classroom. They want to live in a Montessori environment, and you're focused on that. So you're documenting that the child worked with a Montessori lesson or material. And then behind the scenes, the software is making that connection and saying, hey, by the way, if you're interested, they also did XYZ standard. And you can run reports upon that. But nowhere in the workflow for the teacher in the classroom are they even the concept of standards. You're not even thinking about that. So it's kind of like an insurance policy that it's there when you need it. If you need to report on the child's progress in the context of some state or national standard, you have that available. And we'll be adding more of that content into the system. One last thing I'll say about the standards is that it's retroactive, meaning you could start recording in Montessori Compass today that the children are working with these Montessori lessons and document for many months. And then you could map the standards, or maybe we update some additional standards content 6 months from now. Well, you would be able to report upon that. So either 6 months worth of Montessori lessons that you just recorded, now they're mapped to the standards because it's a relationship between a Montessori lesson and some standard or multiple standards in some ways. So long story short, it's completely customizable. You can do it on your own, and it happens behind the scenes in the background, and you can run reports when needed.
Great. I do see a lot of questions that have come in just in regards to the billing and the financial side, especially for the folks in Canada. In short, yeah, we can do processing in Canada. It's not a problem. And globally as well. So yeah, let us know where you're calling in from, and we can get it set up in there. In terms of the billing platform, it's integrated right into the Growth Suite. So yeah, I think there was one question about that. I'm looking through here. Oh, there was a question about training. Yep. So as I mentioned, the software is great, but you are never left alone with the software. Yeah, and there is a lot. And what we find is that schools kind of come in with priorities, right? Some schools, hey, I want to start advertising right away. Okay, make sure you get set up with advertising in your ad campaigns. So I went to school yesterday. They wanted to really get set up with their tuition and their admission side and managing their enrollment. So that's what we focus on. But when you get set up, we do multiple live onboarding sessions to get you set up on the tech, the implementation. And then, as I mentioned, during the week, we have live coaching sessions and we have multiple what I'll call like office hour sessions where you could pop in, got a question. That could be a tech question or it could be a strategic question, right? Hey, we're having an open house and I want to advertise for it. What platform should we use? Things like that. If you really want somebody side by side with you that's helping give guidance, you're going to find us. You're going to find me on those calls answering those questions, especially when it comes to the marketing strategy side of things. So as I said, it's not here's the software, enjoy it and use it. It's here's the software. It's going to do everything you possibly could want it to do. And then you're going to get the support with it as well.
Yeah, it's the same on our side. We're going to provide support every step of the way. There's, multiple webinar time slots each week that you can join. We're both from the Growth Suite side and the Montessori Compass side, very, very accessible, and you're going to have support every step of the way.
And I should say that the foundation helps in two ways. One, we've been working with both of your companies to design and develop the plan specifically for Montessori, going back to 2012 when you were Montessori Buddy. And we started talking about what real record keeping would look like. And fortunately, I reached you at a time when you and Anita were just starting to develop your software. And I think we've used it since 2012. I've been very pleased with it in our own school. And I've seen others come along. Again, whoever comes along, will mimic whatever's there and try to do something more, better, and different. It's perfectly normal. But what I appreciate is a robustness of what we put in there, as opposed to the theory of you can load in any curriculum you want. Well, you can. You can do that with Montessori Compass too. But the other area where we are, are are really strong, I believe, is helping Montessori schools that are serious to understand what best practice looks like, what fully authentic Montessori curriculum would look like, what age kids normally should be introduced to things, when ideally they should know them. And I don't know about you, some of you are as old as I am. Um, I remember a time when it was perfectly normal for a child to learn things that today aren't even taught. In fact, Ninos and I laugh all the time when I'm with them, about the things that they would sell in Europe that they don't even bother bringing in the United States very much because there just is no demand for it. The bottom line is there is a tradition in Montessori. There's a robust curriculum. You don't have to do it if you're modified Montessori or Montessori inspired. That's fine. We're not the Montessori police. What we're trying to do, though, is make sure that all of you know how to do it really well, and that you have the best tools we can possibly get for you. And we want to try to help you to solve real problems in your school. For example, Clint, I think you found that the ads that we write tend to be much more effective than the ads that normally private schools write. Just as
Yeah.
a quick example.
Well, yeah, I said Tim and his school was using our platform for advertising. I still say that Tim has the record for the best performing ad campaign I've ever seen in a school. And just to give you a sense of what that is, with Facebook, typically when you look at like click through rates, you're looking at like 1.75%, and a dollar cost per click. Tim built some ad campaigns that were over 10% engagement rate, which is unheard of, and the costs were 50% lower. So I give Tim the medal of I still so you're still the record holder for best ad campaign.
Bottom line is there's lots of really good creative people in Montessori. What we're trying to do is help you figure out how to sell your school. We're school consultants, remember? And so what we try to do is help you look at what's working, what's not working, what's your school's unique identity, why do your customers, your families come to you? Why do they leave you? And truthfully, they will usually not tell you what they're really thinking. They want to sneak away in the middle of the night and just, they don't want you to be angry at them. They don't want you to treat their child any differently because you're going to a different school, unless they do. Some are very proud. My kid's gotten into Snate Academy and it's all because of you, and want to let you know it's all because of, your Montessori school, that my child is going off to a completely different school that you would never recommend. And you're not sure if you're supposed to vomit or be proud. What we try to do is help you figure out what's happening if you want help. So again, we're school consultants that do all kinds of things from marketing studies and analysis to ad development to video production to special events. You probably know I've written lots of books. We do all kinds of stuff to help you and your team build on top of what you already do well, so that the ideal is you want an attrition rate that's well below 5% a year at any given level. That's the ideal. Well, the ideal would be none, but you're going to get some.
All right. I know, Rob, there were a handful of questions in regards. I'm not sure. Are you seeing the Q&A in terms of um so I think it was, hold on, syncing with state databases, Department of Education. I see some questions about that. I'm not sure if you want to address any of those. There's some questions about training for teachers. So I guess let me ask you that. Will there be provide training for teachers who will be using Compass, the classroom management side, and then any insights into syncing with other databases and things like that?
So yeah, like as far as training, absolutely. So we provide, live webinars each week, multiple time slots. If you don't find a time slot that works for you on our webinar calendar, just let us know and we'll try to accommodate you, depending on your time zone and where you are in the world, and we'll do the best we can to try to make sure that everyone's completely up to speed before the start of the school year. That's our goal. We're going to have a very busy summer. Not a lot of beach time for us. We're going to be focused on making sure that teachers are trained and ready to go, and those kids come around in August and September. You got all your students imported, everyone's trained, your curriculum's the way you want it to look, and everything's ready to go. And then, like I said, we're there every step of the way. You have a problem in October, you have a problem in February, doesn't make a difference. You just reach out to us and we'll let you know if there's something we can help you out with. There's something that we can't. Tim's team is very accessible, and we can. We're always trying to do our best.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that Paul Epstein and Sharon Caldwell and Cheryl Allen, who are three of the people that I work with very closely on this, we're really interested over this next 2 or 3 years to try to help any Montessori school that's willing to learn how to do serious observation at the teacher level, because observation is the heart of, in my opinion, not just Montessori, but all great education. And teachers often feel that they don't have time to do it. Some people would call this child study. Some people would call it note taking. But knowing how to really go deeply to ask, what does a child know? What is a child thinking? Do they really understand what's happening in this classroom? Why is this child doing this weird and wacky behavior? All of that is part and parcel of the history of the Montessori method. It's anthropology in application. And we would like, from our end, to do a lot of work to try to help Montessori schools to do this much better.
I see a question that says we use Transparent Classroom, and they're connected to the National Center for Montessori in the public sector. Is there anything similar with Montessori Compass? Reach out to us. I'm sure that we know some of the folks over there at the public sector, and we'd be happy to try to work something out. So reach out to us, and let's see if we can get that in place for you.
Awesome.
Are
Well,
there any other questions, Clint, that I'm missing here? I'm just
so I was going through, I know there's a question about option for aid. I mean, yes, on the billing side, you can adjust it and for aid as you apply aid to families that will be adjusted and invoices that have to go out to them or their payment plans. So yeah, we'll go through it and show you how it all works. Assuming that that was your question. I hope I'm understanding your question properly.
Yeah, and
Um,
the other one that comes up all the time is the proration, because a child starts, 2 months late in the school year or something like that.
yep.
A lot of software does not allow this kind of changes to be done easily.
There's another question about using Montessori Compass and syncing with Department of Ed in different states, and whether that's something that we will be able to do. Again, reach out to us. We don't do that right now, but with the new system, I suspect that's probably something that's definitely very doable. So reach out to us and let us know the specifics of what you're trying to accomplish, and let's see if we can help you.
Yep.
All right. I don't think I missed other questions. I apologize if I did. I know I thank you for everybody. We still have a lot of folks on here, so I appreciate everybody hanging tight and sticking with us past the hour. Again, amazing questions. Um, I would say I already see in even in my emails, I'm getting notifications. If you have questions that pop up after this, again, reach out to us. The emails that you receive to get here, you just hit reply to them. We can we'll send out a follow-up email with our contact information. And again, you'll have the information here in this deck for if you want to do the demo, again, right on the screen here, go to montessoricompass.com/webinar or montessoricompass.com/growth-suite to if you're ready to start a
Yeah,
trial.
really just to build onto that, if anyone who's interested, that's really the best thing to do is just go ahead and sign up on, you just go to montessoricompass.com. You'll see all the information about the Growth Suite. You'll see a link for webinars. There are two different webinars. There's one for Montessori Compass and then one for the Growth Suite. I would do both of those so you get a real good look at how both of them work. And then you can sign up for a 30-day trial. There's no strings attached, no credit card or anything like that. try it out. Do the webinar, try it out, see what it looks like. Call us, contact us, let us know, what questions you have. And, we recognize that, back to school will be here before you know it. And, we're very accessible here. We'd love to try to get you, set up before the school year starts.
Yeah. So when you go to the webinar page, you see the left-hand side, classroom and communication. So that's your classroom management side. You'll see my face over here. This is the marketing and admissions side. So you can always book a demo. And if any of the times don't work, just contact us. Let us know. We can always book a one-on-one as well.
And I think everyone knows how to reach me. Just give me a call anytime at the
Tim,
Montessori
I've
Foundation.
seen you've given out your cell phone on these webinars. I feel like everybody here might have your cell phone at this point.
Probably do. It's
There we go.
941-914-4106. And I've had 3 calls come in as we've been talking. So I call everyone back. So one of the things that we try to do, instead of polished, slick Madison Avenue, is we're real people in the real world. I just drove 3 days up from Florida with more dogs than I want to think about. And I got here about an hour before this, hot and sweaty. Um, and as I mentioned, one of my dogs, who is sleeping now because he's been a bad boy, got loose from where he was supposed to be contained, and I had to go chase him down. So I hope someday we'll see you at the retreat center. It's called Cool Springs Farm. It'll be the Montessori Foundation's Leadership Retreat Center. And I'll be spending the next week just sort of unpacking and setting things up for the retreat center. Anyway, I'm so glad everyone came, and Clint and Rob, thanks for the work you do.
We're thrilled to be a part of this and working with
Yeah.
both of you and the foundation's team and all of you out there in the Montessori community. We're excited.
Yeah, Tim, thank you. Thank you to the foundation. I mean, we really couldn't have done this and had everything in here without you guys. So yeah, thank you.
Well, I'm looking at some of these questions. I will be approaching all of you, and just those of you who I know, like I see Lisa here, Lisa Reiner. We appreciate that you're here and the questions you're asking. All I can say is our goal is to do well with you and to help you to solve real problems in the limited time you have. Because one thing that I know is what it feels like to run a school or to be in the admissions office of school. Been doing it. I swore I would not have anything to do with schools, and somehow got sucked into my mother's school, and here I am. And I so appreciate the work we all do.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Rob. Thanks everybody for being with us. We're excited, and any follow-up questions, let us know. You can use the post-webinar survey as well, and also continue to keep an eye on your email. These webinars, this was a unique webinar, but every single Thursday and Tuesday we're having webinars and webcasts on a variety of topics, from marketing and admissions to leadership and in the classroom. So make sure you stay on our email list. We're trying to provide you with as much helpful content as possible, and you tell us what you want to know, and we'll continue to deliver. But thanks everybody for joining us. Have a great rest of the week and a good weekend, and hope to see everybody on some demos.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks everybody. See ya.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. We'll send you all the. Are we still live? Are we off?
Well, we're still live. Everybody's signing out, but yeah, everybody was going to get the recording as well.
Yeah, there you go.
Cool.
So,
All right.
I'm so tired.